Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Almost 8 decades ago, in 1946, the Ontario Legislature passed the Conservation Authorities Act. This landmark legislation enabled municipalities to form local watershed-based organizations to address challenges like drought, soil erosion, deforestation, and flooding. Today, Ontario's conservation authorities are essential to watershed management and public safety across our province. Our government is committed to ensuring they remain strong, effective, and ready to meet today's challenges. But right now, Ontario has 36 conservation authorities operating largely on their own, with fragmented and outdated data systems and a patchwork of standards and service delivery. This has led to unpredictable and inconsistent turnaround times for approvals. This creates uncertainty and delays for builders and homeowners and landowners that is holding back Ontario. Our province's population is expected to grow by over 6 million people in the next 2 decades, and we need a system that can support that growth while still protecting our shared environment and our economy. That is why our government is taking action to address these issues by introducing legislation in the coming weeks to create the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency. This new dedicated agency would work with conservation leaders to improve service delivery and protect communities. They will ensure faster, more transparent permitting and more frontline services, so that we can reduce delays to get shovels in the ground sooner, so that we can support economic growth, and so that we can keep our communities safe from floods and other natural hazards. Now, among the agency's top priorities will be to establish a single digital permitting platform so that the process to apply for a Conservation Authority permit is the same anywhere in Ontario. Now, this platform will help conservation authorities reduce red tape to provide a faster, more predictable approvals process and improved customer service. The agency will also work to set clear province-wide performance standards and support the consistent application of these standards with centralized data and updated floodplain mapping. Now, in the coming weeks, our government will also begin consultations on a plan to consolidate our 36 current conservation authorities into several watershed-based regional conservation authorities. This will help reduce duplication, free up resources for frontline conservation work, and ensure conservation authorities are more responsive to the needs of the communities they serve. The proposed boundaries of the new regional conservation authorities will be based on the following criteria: maintaining watershed-based jurisdictions for effective flood and water management, reducing administrative overlap and duplication for municipalities and conservation authorities, balancing expertise and capacity is the second criterion, and this is to balance those across conservation authorities to improve service and program delivery. Thirdly, ensuring uninterrupted delivery of local conservation authority programs. To give just one example of the duplication in the current system, 130 municipalities currently belong to 2 or more conservation authorities. And this means that one part of a city or town may follow different rules and processes, which creates frustration for people and it creates burden on municipalities. Under our proposal, this number would drop to 48, simplifying the process for more than 70 municipalities. Now, let me be clear about what is not changing. Conservation authorities will continue to deliver the programs and the services that they deliver today. They will continue to protect against natural hazards like flooding. They will continue to protect our drinking water sources. They will continue to manage their lands, trails, and other recreational and educational facilities. Their mandate is not changing. The areas served by conservation authorities are not changing. Their funding is not changing. In fact, they will be better equipped than ever before to meet the changing needs of our communities. This transformation will not happen overnight. We will look forward to receiving input on our proposal and to moving forward with creating a more efficient and more effective conservation authority system in Ontario. I thank you for your kind attention this morning, and now I would like to introduce Ontario's first Chief Conservation Executive, Hassaan Basit. He will share more details about our proposal.
Good morning. Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. It's a real honour to be here today alongside Minister McCarthy to mark an important milestone for conservation in Ontario. I have personally worked with conservation authorities for more than 20 years. It's been a real privilege, always felt like a calling, not a job. Over those 20 years, from the field to the boardroom, I've seen firsthand the incredible dedication of many of my former colleagues and those leading conservation authorities today in protecting our watersheds and our communities. As someone trained in evolutionary biology, I've always been fascinated by how systems adapt, evolve, and strengthen over time. That perspective has guided my public service, building organizations that learn, innovate, and deliver better outcomes for people and the environment. And truly, Ontario's conservation authorities are one of our greatest success stories. For nearly 80 years, they have safeguarded people and property from floods, protected natural spaces, and connected generations of Ontarians to nature close to home. But as the Minister said, the challenges we face today are not the same as those of 1946. Climate change, population growth, the pace of development, these forces are reshaping our landscape. Flooding is more frequent and more severe. We are asking conservation authorities to do more with greater complexity and with faster results expected than ever before. Conservation authorities have always stepped up. That's why today's announcement matters. We're changing what conservation authorities do. We're not changing what conservation authorities do. We're strengthening how they do it. The creation of the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency marks a turning point, enabling every conservation authority, large or small, to operate consistently with better technical resources, improved digital tools, and data insights to help protect communities in a changing climate. This is about setting our conservation authorities up for success, bringing together shared expertise so every region, urban, rural, and the north can access the same high-quality science, modern mapping, and flood data. It is also about alignment, ensuring conservation authorities support the province's priorities on housing, infrastructure, and economic growth, and an approach that rewards innovation, accountability, and measurable outcomes. Most importantly, this modernization keeps local conservation strong, protecting people from floods, restoring natural systems, and preserving incredible conservation areas that inspire Ontarians while supporting community stewardship on the ground. I want to thank Minister McCarthy, the Premier, and the dedicated staff at the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks who have helped shape this vision and bring it to life. Together, we are renewing one of Ontario's most important environmental institutions, built on local roots, strengthened by modern systems, and ready for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open the floor to questions, and it will be one question and one follow-up. Questions?
Minister McCarthy,
Morning.
The release says that this would result in the consolidation of effectively a 63% change here, reduction in these conservation authorities. How many people will be laid off?
Well, this is a consolidation or amalgamation of 36 existing conservation authorities into several watershed-based regional conservation authorities. And so this is about better service, and therefore it's about improved frontline service. So in fact, there is no job loss associated with this. This is about making sure that we back the frontline workers with better supports, better technology, and the equalization and standardization of that across the province so that no conservation authority, no community will be left behind.
So
Let me make sure I understand this. There's going to be no layoffs, but there will be a 63% reduction in these conservation authorities somehow. Where's the reduction coming from if it's not staff?
It's not a reduction, it's a consolidation and an amalgamation, which means that all of the communities currently served by conservation authorities will continue to be served by conservation authorities. And we will redeploy any management positions, for example, through consolidation to frontline workers, frontline supports, frontline services.
Will you mandate that redeployment? Will that be in legislation or regulation?
Well, that's why we're creating the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency. This new agency, which will be proposed in this legislation to come in the coming weeks, will guide and create the framework for the regional conservation authorities in terms of how they deliver the services. So, yes, that centralization is the key. We've never had a centralized authority before. We're doing it this time to make sure that we have that framework that is consistent across the province and all the communities in the province.
During budget season, municipal leadership see this as an opportunity to save costs. They say, look, our technical department is fully staffed with this consolidation. We don't need to redeploy this management position, and they choose not to. What will your government do, what will the central authority do to ensure that that doesn't result in a layoff?
Well, that's what the proposals are about, right? The proposals are to be the subject of conversations and consultations. And through that process, we will arrive at the point where, in the meantime, of course, conservation authorities, as they are, will continue. The governance of them will continue. The membership on them will continue to the end of this current municipal term in just 1 year's time. But the process of transforming them into regional conservation authorities and the makeup of that and the framework for that will be guided by the consultations, by the conversations, and led by the central agency, the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency. And so once this term of office for municipal councillors is concluded, the transformation will then take place from that point forward, beginning in late 2026 and into 2027.
What will happen if, in a year's time, it'll be pretty easy to tell if people have been laid off? You said they won't be.
There are no layoffs here. It's about redeploying anyone into frontline services. But let's be clear, this is about consistent and enhanced frontline services so that jobs on the front line will continue and will be, if anything, added to.
In a year's time, if a position has been laid off at one of these conservation authorities, what will you do? Will you go in and order them to rehire new people?
That's why the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency is leading this discussion. It's going to ensure that the mandate, the core mandate of conservation authorities is continued, that the deployment and redeployment to frontline services is ensured.
So how are you going to ensure that, though? Is there going to be specific language that says this in the legislation? Because right now you're saying, trust me, and you know we don't trust politicians, generally speaking. So
the framework will be led by the central agency. So the legislation sets up the agency, and then further legislation will follow based on the conversations and consultations led by the central agency, the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency. That will lead to the next legislation midway through 2026.
Okay, just shifting gears slightly. We keep hearing that this government likes to streamline things, and I know you're saying streamline here, but you're creating a new agency. So how are you going to explain that to people who in your world who think that we need smaller government? Because isn't this adding on to the bureaucracy?
Well, we're doing two things. First, we're consolidating or amalgamating 36 conservation authorities into several watershed-based conservation authorities led by a central agency. So that actually is about streamlining. It is about more efficiency. It is about better customer service. And it's about making sure we have standardized practices across the province. Because the current system of conservation authorities has not been working for homeowners, or for builders, or for farmers, or even for municipalities who are dealing with as many as 4 in Hamilton, for example. And that means we're getting inconsistent outcomes even within a municipality. So we want to make sure that that is consistent, transparent, and predictable. That's why we have the central agency guidance, the central agency framework, and the consolidation into watershed-based regional conservation authorities.
Why not keep the 36 authorities and just apply standardized rules to all of them?
Because many of the 36 authorities were under-resourced and were being left behind. So we want to make sure that the resources, the technology, the up-to-date mapping is available to all. And the way to do that is with regional consolidation, based on the science of watershed management.
Sir, how many redeployments are you anticipating will take place?
We're not anticipating any job losses at all. We're anticipating better frontline services and enhanced frontline services.
Minister, you talked about how the system needs improvements, but why now?
Because we need to protect Ontario and the workings of the conservation authorities. When it's not serving the people as well as it ought to, then we're not protecting Ontario. So part of this is also about the motivation to build critical infrastructure faster, to build housing faster, to get national projects in the ground faster. So conservation authorities should enhance that. They shouldn't be an impediment to it, and it shouldn't be unequal standards applied across the province. I always say respect for the rule of law is undermined when there's inconsistency in the application of the rules depending on where you are. So this will help not only streamline but standardize and equalize the services across Ontario.
Minister, you've said repeatedly here there's not going to be layoffs. You've acknowledged there will be redeployments. I'm going to ask this again. How many people are going to be redeployed in their jobs? Surely.
Well, so for example, the CEOs of the 36 conservation authorities would be redeployed. There'd be an opportunity to redeploy them into frontline services. That's what I mean when I say no job losses are anticipated. But the emphasis is going to be...
No, it's not going to take a frontline job, right?
That transformational opportunity will be there. We want the best and the brightest in the front line where it's going to make a difference, where it's going to be effective, where it's going to do the things that are consistent with the core mandate of watershed management and flood prevention. And they have knowledge that can be deployed. So we live in a world where people don't retire at 65, they just get into a new line of work. Look at me, I was a lawyer for 33 years and now I'm a politician.
So your expectation is that the CEOs who are redundant in this process will become frontline workers?
Nobody who wants to serve and apply their knowledge and skill set on the front lines would ever be redundant in this new system, my friend.
We'll do one more question.
It sounds like you might be, or the focus on building, clearing the way.
Good morning, Siobhan, by the way.
Good morning. Are you not overemphasizing the importance of building critical infrastructure rather than the actual work of the conservation authorities, protecting land, water, those sorts of things?
Well, the two go hand in hand, as I always say, and it's not a cliche. We need to build the Ontario of tomorrow while protecting the environment. We need to make sure that conservation authorities fulfill their core mandate and facilitate the building of the Ontario of tomorrow while making sure that that core mandate of flood prevention and watershed management is maintained.
Can I just ask the Minister about the central authority as well? Will the central authority have the power to take over any of the decisions of individual authorities if they are not meeting their targets? For example, if development applications are delayed, will the central authority be able to come in and streamline that development application?
Yeah, so the purpose of the agency is to create a standardized framework across the province, provide guidance, provide support, and make sure that the resourcing across the province among conservation authorities is even and fair.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Minister, what are you going to say to the critics who are going to say this is all just a big smoke?
That's all the time we have. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much for your attention today.
Minister, one more follow-up.
So what are you going to say to critics that say this is all the